You kept trying to make peace with someone who was still protecting the lie. And that changes a person. Because forgiveness sounds beautiful when people talk about it from a distance. Just let it go. Forgive for your own peace. Move on. But nobody talks about what happens when the person who hurt you never admits what they did. No honesty. No accountability. No real acknowledgement of the damage. Just silence. Deflection. Half-truths. And a pressure for you to heal quietly so they never have to face themselves. That's the hidden cost. You start carrying emotional weight that was never yours to carry. At first, you tell yourself you're being mature. You try not to fight. You stop bringing it up. You convince yourself closure isn't necessary. But deep down, something still hurts. Because your nervous system knows the truth was buried alive to protect someone else's image. And every time you silence your pain to maintain peace, you betray yourself a little more. That's the part nobody prepares you for. Forgiving someone who never admitted their lies can slowly disconnect you from your own reality. Because healing requires truth. Not perfection. Not revenge. Truth. And when truth is constantly denied, your mind begins splitting itself in two. One side remembers exactly what happened. The other side keeps trying to minimize it so you can survive the relationship. That internal conflict becomes exhausting. You start questioning your own memory. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I expected too much. But those thoughts usually appear after prolonged emotional manipulation. Especially when the liar stays calm while you carry all the emotional consequences. That's what narcissistic deception does. It transfers the psychological burden onto the victim. They lie. You overthink. They deny. You explain. They avoid accountability. You lose sleep trying to make sense of everything. And eventually, you become emotionally responsible for protecting the comfort of the person who hurt you. That's not forgiveness. That's self-abandonment. Because real forgiveness cannot be forced through suppression. It cannot grow in an environment where your reality is still being erased. And some people do not want forgiveness. They want immunity. They want access to you without accountability. They want you calm enough to stop asking questions. That's why they become uncomfortable when you finally speak clearly. Because your silence was benefiting them. Not you. And one of the darkest parts of forgiving an unrepentant liar is how isolated it makes you feel. You carry conversations that never got resolved. Pain that never got acknowledged. Grief without witnesses. You walk around pretending you're okay, while internally replaying moments your heart still cannot digest. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because the story was never allowed to reach the truth. That creates emotional paralysis. Especially when the person keeps acting normal while you quietly collapse inside. And over time, you may begin believing that your need for honesty is the problem. That wanting acknowledgement is dramatic. That asking for truth means you can't let things go. But honesty is not too much to ask for. Basic accountability is not cruelty. And your pain did not become invalid just because someone refused to confess. That's important. Because many survivors stay trapped for years waiting for one conversation, one admission, one moment of honesty that finally makes the suffering feel real. But some people will protect their ego at the cost of your sanity. They will rewrite events, twist context, minimize the damage, and stare directly at your pain while pretending confusion. Not because they forgot, because admitting the truth would force them to confront themselves. And people who survive through deception often fear accountability more than losing you. That realization hurts, but it also frees you. Because healing truly begins when you stop waiting for honesty from people committed to distortion. When you stop needing their confession to validate your memory. When you stop asking the person who broke your trust to finally repair your reality. That is the turning point. The moment you realize your healing cannot depend on someone else's willingness to tell the truth. And suddenly, for the first time, you stop trying to earn clarity from the person who created the confusion. You stop protecting the lie. And you finally start protecting yourself.